Hi, I'm Eileen Myles. I'm a poet. I'm a longtime New Yorker. I guess I'm a queer and famous poet. And this is old New York.
We are at Cafe Mogador in the East Village.
Indeed.
How long have you been coming here for?
I mean, as long as it's existed, so I don't know, I've lived in the neighborhood since, I think it's been here since the 80s. And so that would make it be like a 40-year relationship.
Were you coming here for all meals, or was this more of like a coffee, breakfast spot?
Coffee, I think, or breakfast. You know, it seems like the only place I would generally go for breakfast would be here. There's a breakfast with cheese. Like, I would need the menu to see the name of it.
They have the Mediterranean breakfast.
Halloumi eggs.
My mom's favorite.
Yeah.
Like
Everybody's mom's favorite.
Yeah.
So give us the scene. Like you walk in, it's the 80s. Like who's here? Give us a who's who.
Oh God, no! See, I can't. Yeah, then it's just like I'm having fights with most of those people, or they're exes that we will never speak again, or like there have been days when I've been here 3 separate times to either, quote, have an interview, meet somebody, talk about something, plan something. I mean, it's just like always like Mogador is the place. The neighborhood exploded in the 80s. Suddenly there were galleries, and there was cocaine, and there was limos, and there were new bars. There was a bar called the Red Bar. People had long hair in the 70s and facial hair. It was still a 60s thing hanging out. In the 80s, suddenly everybody got a haircut. Men, short hair. And it was shocking. And so when I think of the Red Bar, I think everybody had short hair, and it was like, whoa.
Of like the yuppie, perhaps?
No, it was new wave. It was new wave. It was just kind of like, because like the Club 57 was here.
Yeah.
CBGB's had a poetry series there, and I only went there for that. And then there was country western afterwards. But then the punk, then there was the new wave moment suddenly.
Were you going?
Oh yeah. We all. I mean, that was a thing. Everybody had their favorite band that they would always see. And then and this guy Tony had a play, and Debbie Harry's band played in it, and I was like, oh. And then understood that they were like a real band, and this was actually, and that slow realization that people in New York actually are doing things.
Right.
When they say, I'm like, making a movie, would you like to be in it? They're making a movie. Yeah, it was like total, it was hard to get through that. And you still see people come to New York and not get it. We are here at East River Park. I mean, I'm personally deeply attached to this place because I've been coming down here since the late 70s, and it was salvation, as a person who started to stop drinking and taking drugs, and, I had this extra energy, and I started to come down here and run in the late 70s, and I was like, oh my God, and realized, the river's here, the track's here, and there was a whole world of people down here. This has been here. Robert Moses built this park 80 years ago. I mean, he built it because he wanted to do FDR, and he said, well, we'll do something for the nice working people of New York. And that's why the park was built, so that he could do that. But meanwhile, these trees grew, and they're among the oldest trees in New York, and 100,000 people a year use this park, and during the pandemic, far, far more, and it's been salvation for me, for my dog, for my relationships. I've been at so many events down here. There's an amphitheater that's been here since the Public Theater in the 50s. So this is like, and it's old New York. It's really, really old New York, meaning that the rich are here, the poor are here, the white are here, the brown, the black, the yellow, everybody is here. The city of New York is planning to demolish this park, and they want to build a big concrete wall over there along the river, and they're going to, once they pull every living thing out of the park, they're going to cover it with 1 million tons of landfill, and then they're going to let that settle for a while, and then they're going to build astroturf and like concrete and 12 tennis courts for some people who don't live here yet, and nobody who lives here doesn't smell development, because look where we're standing next to the river in Manhattan, and like any old people can use this for free. How can that be done? How can that be possible?
Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the Poetry Project and your experience here?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is an awesome place because this always was the immigrant church. I mean, since early 20th century. I mean, it literally was the site of the chapel on Peter Stuyvesant's farm. There were free poetry workshops on Friday nights, and we would just all come here, just drop in, bring our beers, and just do the workshop, and it created like a little scene among us. That was the first year they had these enormous benefits, and it was crazy. It was like Yoko Ono and Patti. I was like, oh my God, and I couldn't get in. I remember I was like standing outside, and they cut off, and I was like, I'll always get in after this. Don Giorno was still a figure.
Yeah.
I mean, he was one of the people who kind of invented. Ian Waldman invented the place.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And the older generation, that's what we knew about them. They were all friends. They were all having sex with each other. They were all doing magazines and publishing each other. And some got famous and some didn't, And so it just created this sense of, I mean, the way people talked in the 70s still was like you would meet some older person and they would say, so Eileen, when did you come on the scene? And people really described it as the scene. And I think it was like the idea was we were going to become famous. It was a shoot. I saw things change. MTV, the 80s, was a real moment, And the other thing is that, like, say, Madonna, we remember when she was a bartender on 12th Street at a bar called, I can't remember the name. But anyway, she was like the hot bartender, And then suddenly she was in that band that people laughed at in the music building. All the punk bands were like, her, and stuff. And then she was famous. But she did the thing, like, at that time, there was so much heroin in the neighborhood, and all the Puerto Rican girls wore little crucifix earrings. It was like, there was like a little Jesus Christ on everybody's. And Madonna adapted that, and then she became famous, and she went on MTV, and it became a global style in the 80s. And what you started to see was that the local and the global suddenly were like that far away. Because it used to be that you could really tell who somebody was by the way they dressed. Yeah. And now you couldn't.
Like, what was that kind of like decisive moment where you're like, I have to get there?
Well, I had friends who were here. There was an urban version of the Peace Corps called Vista, and they would give me tours, and we would be on McDougal Street, and they would say, Bob Dylan lives there. And then we would go past Max's Kansas City, and they were like, that's where, Andy Warhol, and they would point to, on St. Mark's Place and say the Velvet Underground played there. I was like, you mean it's here? It's like,